Hi there. So today we're gonna take a trip into the fantasy what if land of basically what I would do if I was given the reins for DC right now. Well, in specifically the DC film universe, because as things are going right now, it looks to be a bit of a mess. Like projects are getting canceled here or there, where there doesn't seem to be any real cohesion as far as we know. But they said there's going to be a 10-year plan. It's going to be in the hands of a couple people. So with the idea of it being magically put into my hands, I'm going to give you my thoughts on where I think the DC universe could go, where I would bring it, and I think some of it's going to surprise you. But first, I think what we really got to talk about is where it was. That's going to be the key aspect of when it comes to this. We have to know exactly where it was before we look at where we're going to go with it in the future. So in the last few years, the DC universe has kind of been a mixed bag. There's been some good stuff, and there's been some bad stuff, and there's been some stuff that I think has kind of like walked that razor's edge of exactly where it was. They started off with Zack Snyder, who was meant to be the vision of the DC universe. Um, Whether you agree with Zack Snyder's vision or not, that's neither here nor there, or whether I agree. What it started with is we got Man of Steel, and it was polarizing. But overall, most people did like Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel. There were some I don't think there's anybody that really, when that movie came out, were like, oh no, he's a problem here. No, there are some issues, some tonal issues, and we would come back to that a little bit later. But overall, I think the Man of Steel did what it was supposed to do. But in my opinion, I don't think Zack Snyder was the right person for maybe the right person for an overall arcing part. But I think Zack Snyder probably should have farmed out the Man of Steel to another director, somebody that's more that as Zack Snyder would probably honestly say, actually likes the character as opposed to Snyder, who has kind of a darker vision, who I could see doing more of a Batman or a film along those lines. So we got the Man of Steel, we got Batman v Superman, and this is when things start to kind of start to crumble a bit, because when you have a movie that has Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman in the same film, that should be one of the biggest movies. That should not be something that polarizes anybody. That should be one of the biggest movies for a comic book fan, like of all time. It's one of those like dream things that you think is going to happen, and you and your friends probably thought about it and read through different comics and dog-eared your issues of Action Comics or Crisis or any, and said, okay, if this happened, they could all these villains, they could do all this type of stuff, and we didn't get that. So things start to fall off a bit there, as as well. But we still have the opportunity to succeed. But they are trying to do what looks to be at this point a reverse of Marvel, in that they're going to be pushing, especially with Batman versus Superman, all of the heroes in like one film with like little cameos, and then they're going to do a team film, which we're going to talk about in a second, rather than go out and pretty much establish each of the heroes first and then put them together so that you've got somebody to care about. Hence comes Justice League. Justice League comes about, and of course, unfortunately, due to like personal family tragedy, Zack Snyder has to move away from the film. Josh Whedon is brought in, and his sensibility for what Justice League could or should be just doesn't really fit. He clashes with some of the actors. Tonally, if you were into the Zack Snyder tone of like the first two films, no matter like if I liked them, somebody else liked them or not, people that totally like Zack Snyder's tone really may have been thrown off by the Joss Whedon one, because it's extremely different, and it doesn't feel like the first two films. Now, that being said, Zack Snyder would eventually get to a 4 hour version of his film. Wouldn't be like wouldn't be the film that he was initially going to do. It was like basically what he could put together and do after the fact, after watching what Josh Whedon did and made mistakes with, and kind of did his own thing, that kind of do his own vision basically. So they let them do his own vision, and did it work? Well, for me, not too much, but for a lot of people, it was a culmination of a lot of fan interest and a lot of fan love, and you can never fault that. Like people that kind of like put the positivity into the fan community and love something the way that some of them like loved the whole like the Snyderverse. It was really nice and satisfying to see a fan community get that film that they wanted. Unfortunately, right now we're going into a just the opposite of that. We're going to what I call a creative vacuum, because Warner and Discovery have merged, and what we're seeing right now is we're seeing films and TV shows being taken away, not just like put onto like a streaming service or put on maybe direct to rental thing, just literally being completed films being taken out of the marketplace altogether. So we're basically seeing the squashing of creativity with under the Warner Discovery one. So the, it's not too hard to think that I don't feel too good about where it's going right now, because it looks like as a creative, as in a creative side, they're not looking at creative at all. They're still putting out Flash with Ezra Miller, but Batgirl gets canceled, and it looks like Supergirl's gotten canceled as well. The Matt Reeves Batman movies are still up in the air, which kind of blows my mind. As is his Arkham Asylum series, and his and I think he was doing like a Penguin series as well, right? Because he initially was going to do a cop series, like a Gotham Central type thing, but turned into a Penguin series. So that's where we are right now. Basically, everything except from Joaquin Phoenix's Joker 2, um, and the Flash with Ezra Miller is is coming out. So it's pretty much a clean slate right now, because we don't know where they can go in the future. So where do we go? Now, there's a reason I didn't dive into the offshoots like Aquaman and Wonder Woman and the kind of problematic Wonder Woman 1984. It's basically just because they tend to be in their own little bubble, even like Shazam and Black Adam. Although it's supposed to be in the same type of universe, aside from like the Justice League film, these characters are really, in all honesty, Wonder Woman is a completely different character in Wonder Woman than she is in the Justice League movie. So it's like they're all in their own little bubble right now. So in order to do that, one of the things we're going to have to do right now is we're going to wipe clean the everything that's been done before, and that does include the Snyderverse. Now, that being said, if for instance they want to do like Buffy did, like so once Buffy got canceled and Angel got canceled, what Whedon did was he continued the Buffy like seasons as comic book shows, and there is like a definitely a fan base, a big fan base for the Snyder vision of the DC universe. And DC is always going about their reboots and their different labels and stuff like that. So to do like maybe a Snyder line of comic books to continue what his vision would have been might be a nice way to conclude it for fans that want to get the conclusion of like Justice League 2 and what he wanted to have done with that. But from here on out, what we're going to do is we're going to wipe the slate clean, and I'm going to give you some ideas on where I want the universes to go. Universes, that's going to be really important in the as we talk about this, and I'll let you know exactly where I think they should head with it. The fact that we're seeing a Flash movie, and it's going to come out no matter what, and probably going to go towards what is Flashpoint, where the kind of the split the universe, and it all comes back into one kind of amalgamated, unique, different universe. A new new DC, or a new 52 as it was branded at the time, helps give us a starting point. Because what we're going to do is we are going to, one, we're gonna get Ezra Miller out of there and any problematic people from the series. But by having him having basically a one universe come together, and this universe is what we're going to be going with from here on out. So we can basically do a kickstart on a lot of things. So whoever they want to put in for the face of the Flash. I know some people say Grant Gustin, but I think Grant Gustin's been playing the Flash for 7 years. He's probably very, very tired of playing the character right now, and he's a Broadway guy, so I'm expecting him to go back to Broadway and not be doing the Flash in the future. So I guess recast the Flash, get somebody, get an unknown, get somebody that we don't know. And they can even do a different Flash because there's Barry Allen's not the only Flash. When I was in college, Wally West was the Flash for the majority of the time. It wasn't until years later actually that Barry Allen came back. There are different versions of the Flash, but I would say either just recast Barry Allen, or we can do what happened in Crisis, where Barry Allen dissipates, pretty much, and then we have Wally West, and that's actually a good starting point. Let's do that. So Wally West is brought in, like in the whether it's in that. I'm not sure if he's in the Flashpoint. If he's not in Flashpoint, then they can bring in a Wally West in the like early on in another film where basically we realize that the Flash is gone and he has to take over that mantle place. One of the big driving forces behind the Flash and Wally West's era of the Flash, especially Mark Waid, its run on it, is basically his. He grew up with his uncle who's the Flash, and he was like Kid Flash. So the idea of him like graduating to taking on those shoes, if they were big shoes to fill, so he has like he even though he is faster than Barry Allen, he doesn't psychologically originally at the beginning let himself become faster than Barry Allen because he's having issues with becoming with being the Flash and taking on that role. And we can start the Flash film with that. We got a brand new Flash. We have a brand new storyline. We got a driving force for him. And with that being said, before we go any farther, there's one thing that we are going to put into place right away. There's not going to be any team movies until the end. We're going to end with like a big team film, much in the way that Marvel did with the Avengers, except we're not going to have like team films in between. We're going to establish characters throughout the universe. We are going to bring in Superman. And whether they want to bring back Henry Cavill, I do think Henry Cavill, although he's a great physicality for it, and I think he does a great job in the role, and is a better actor than even I give him credit for sometimes. I think maybe it's best to go maybe a little bit younger and do like almost like a New 52 where they bring a younger kind of Grant Morrison-esque Superman into the works. Now I wouldn't bring him in like where basically where he's kind of like me skinny, and then he slowly becomes big because of the sun. But bring in Superman like fairly new. For Batman again, as much as I do like I like Ben Affleck's Batman, I like Matt Reeves' Batman. I think we can do offshoot movies if you want to for like little pocket universe things, kind of like because we don't everything doesn't have to focus on on this big overarching story. Like even these like one offs, like we will know where it's going towards, and trust me, I'm gonna clue you in a bit on where it's going towards. But we're going to be focusing on bringing in a lot of these characters, introducing them, introducing their backgrounds, introducing the people around them. One of the great things that the Marvel Universe and the comics has been able to do is that they'll take have a wide array of like characters that you care about just as much as the main characters. If you've ever read a Spider-Man comic before, then you'll know that you care as much about like characters like Betty Brant and MJ and Felicia as you do about like the main character Peter Parker himself. So we're going to dive into these characters here. We're going to go into some of the iconic villains, but we won't put out the most iconic villains right away. We're not starting this out with a big Lex Luthor like plot, and what will hint towards Lex Luthor will may even show like Lex Luthor in the first film, but we won't really get into like a Lex storyline. And I can tell you this right now: no real estate, no real estate. Every Luthor, for some god awful reason, has decided that his big plan was going to be a real estate plan. Go watch back Superman again. Watch the original Superman back in 1970 and 1978. You know what it was? It was a real estate plan. Go watch Superman Returns. You know what he was doing then? He was creating this like kind of this kryptonite like island like place because he wanted to make he wanted a real estate plan. I'm tired of the real estate plans. We're getting rid of that right now. Batman 2, the Matt Reeves Batman would not be within the universe of the DC universe that we see right now. That's going to be its own thing, like the Nolan thing was its own thing. I think we should respect it as it is, and that's where we come to my next point before we go on any further. And I think you're going to like this one. The Joker 2, the Matt Reeves Batman films, any films of that are going to be like edgier and darker and stuff like that. Well, guess what we're going to do? We are bringing back Vertigo. We're bringing back Vertigo not for the comics. We're bringing back Vertigo for the DC universe. We're going to have a line of Vertigo imprinted films that are going to be more adult, maybe sometimes slightly edgier. Not always like doesn't have to be edgier, but always more of an adult take on it. We're gonna have like the opportunity to bring in characters like Animal Man. It's be able to do things like to do offshoots from the Sandman series, like Death, High Cost of Living, anything like that. That's going to be imprinted with Vertigo. It doesn't have anything to do with the original Marvel universe. It's its own little pocket place where you can get to see a few more adult titles, some stuff that you can enjoy. Like we're going to have the main universe there, and that's the more of the everybody can watch it, family can watch it, the kids can watch it. But we're going to do these Vertigo title type things where we can actually dive into little things that doesn't have to be superhero related. Vamps, for instance, was a series of like mini series that was done under the Vertigo line. There's a whole ton. Sandman Mystery Theater, not like the Netflix one, but actually the Wesley Dodd character in kind of a film noir esque. Kind of really kind of murder mystery style miniseries. You can do a whole bunch when it comes to that. We're gonna take Vertigo, bring it back. We're not going to call it Black Label. We're going to have DC Vertigo films, and those films are going to be the Joker 2. It's going to be your Matt Reeves films. It's going to be the films that are going to be they're going to push the envelope a bit and can do a little bit different things. These are the films that can get your R ratings. These are the films that are going to be slightly different, and you can do this by doing it like this by putting this Vertigo imprint onto this here. You are going to you're going to get the people that have the nostalgia for the old Vertigo stuff. You're going to get people that want to see some of the darker or different, and maybe don't want to see a superhero story, but don't mind seeing like a story that came from a comic book. Road to Perdition, there you go, right there, or a History of Violence or something like that. Can go within like a Vertigo line. It doesn't have to be a superhero film. It's just a film that we like you take. You're going to take them all seriously, but you're going to take seriously in a different way. This is going to be your for when I was reading comics, Vertigo was like this cool thing. The cool kids knew what Vertigo was, and we knew that it wasn't for a younger audience. That's what the Vertigo line was going to be. Now, for the main DC universe, we are going to slowly rebuild these characters again. I think Gal Gadot is still young enough to be and does has that look and style that she can still play Wonder Woman. I am trying to like go with a more youthful one, and the reason I want to do that is because basically. What I want to do is kind of we've got like a younger universe. We can see these characters grow. We can see actors that may not be the biggest actors get roles and kind of grow and become bigger as they go along. And these are actors you want to get when they're younger, so they can do a lot more. You can like film like 2 or 3 films, that type of thing. But we're going to focus on a lot of different characters. We're not just going to do the Trinity. One of the biggest problems I think that DC has had is that they focus too heavily on the Trinity. And so for those that don't read DC Comics or don't know what the Trinity is, it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. As you can see, that's what they focused on the last time around. Anybody else that wasn't Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, they were cameos in the Batman versus Superman film. Cyborg was a cameo. Flash was a cameo. They would get the movies down the road, they said. And even like then, they say, well, we're going to combine their movies together. So we're going to deal with a lot of different characters because we're going to be going towards a big film, but we're going to do it differently. The way we're going to do this is as opposed to where you'd see everything would go towards this one big universal thing, and we are still going to do that. We're going to do this slightly differently because we're going to branch it a bit because we are going to get your films like your Supermans, your Blue Beetles. Yes, we're going with Blue Beetle, and your Booster Golds, because Booster Gold, I'm sorry, it's a really uh, underrated character that desperately needs to be put into this universe. And Green Lantern. We are finally doing Green Lantern. Um, and I'm not going to go with Hal Jordan. That's just too. I know he's the first Green Lantern and all this type of stuff. So I got to go in between. So if it was my better half, she would say John Stewart. That's her favorite Green Lantern. She watched the Justice League cartoon. I am going to go with Kyle Rayner because I think he's the artist. He's the more like he's the Green Lantern that's going to think outside the box. And we can bring in John Stewart. We can bring in Guy Gardner. I thought about going with Gardner first because again, like anybody that's read the comics knows that Gardner was the one that ring was originally meant for. So to actually make Gardner the original Green Lantern, yeah, we're doing that then. I've talked myself out of my original plan. We are going with Guy Gardner, the original choice for Green Lantern. Why? Guy Gardner is a jerk, but Guy Gardner is one of the most entertaining jerks you are ever going to see, and it's going to lead more towards the fact that not every DC film has to be dark and edgy. We can have fun. Guy Gardner Green Lantern film is going to be a bit more fun. We will do the scene where Guy Gardner gets punched by Batman. You have to do that. It's an iconic scene in DC Comics for Justice League during the Keith Giffen era. So we will be doing that. But what we're going to do for for every film like that you're going to get, you're going to get a John Constantine. You're going to get a Xanadu, Madame Xanadu. You're going to get a Zatanna. Do you see where this is going yet? If you're a DC fan, you'll probably see where this is going. So we're doing the regular universe, straightforward stuff. And then on the other side, we got the occulty, like Swamp Thing esque style stuff. Why are we doing that? Because we are building toward Justice League and we are building toward Justice League Dark. Because that is one. Justice League Dark is my freaking jam. I love Justice League Dark. I love that cool occult style to it, and it's almost like runs into Vertigo territory, but not quite. Because what we are going to do is we're bringing these characters, the regular Justice League, and like the offshoots and the Justice League Dark characters, to a massive crossover between Justice League and Justice League Dark for a huge, at least two-part film that would be epic. And we are not going to go with Dark Side. We're going to go with some. The reason we're using Justice League Dark is because we can go with a more of an occult, mystical character. Because you have to remember, one of the big things about Superman, his magic affects him really badly. Superman can punch the hell out of a gigantic monster, but you know what? Magic, that's as big a weakness to him as kryptonite. So putting Justice League and Justice League Dark together in a culmination, and this would be at a culmination, by the way. This would be like at a 5 or 10 year period that we would be doing this. Would be the way to actually to work it for me. This is the way that I'll work it. And we would have like some films that would kind of be on their own that might just go right into the universe. Maybe just some fun films in between, some miniseries that we can do on HBO Max, some cartoons, because I wouldn't give up on the cartoon universe or the cartoon shows, like Bruce Timm's like Batman one. But the idea is to take both of the universes, the DC universe, and the original DC universe, and the DC, like the darker occult universe, and put it together to make a massive thing. No more freaking beams coming out of the sky. We're gonna see an incredible, epic fight that is going to last 2 films, and it is going to. The first one is going to end on a jaw dropper, and you're going to be wanting to see the next part. Where it's not going to be like before, where it's kind of hinted at. No, there is going to be a definitive cliffhanger that you are going to have to come back and see the other film for. And you're going to want, if you've been following the regular DC universe and you haven't been following the dark universe, or vice versa, you are going to want to go back and see some of those other films and get some of those Easter eggs that are in there. We're also going to be putting in some legacy characters here and there because we do want to build towards the future. Even though we're going for a younger film, after 10 years or so, some of these actors may grow out of it. They may not want to do the roles anymore. So there are different options there. And by the way, for those that think I forgot about it, I have not. Batman Beyond, Vertigo. There you go. So you get your Batman Beyond movie in Vertigo, and we get Michael Keaton, playing Batman, an older Batman. We have a young guy playing Terry McGinnis, and if you want to offshoot that into like into a Beyond universe, that's up to them. But for me, this is what I'm sticking with. We got our Vertigo titles, we got our offshoot like TV shows and stuff like that. But we got the main DC universe, we got the Dark universe, and those are going to combine to make an epic, epic crossover that is going to just have ramifications throughout after it's all done. So, is it going to be like the snap or anything like that? It's going to be done in a different way, and it's not like we got to kill off everybody or we got to kill off half the world, but it's going to be something that, and if you read the comics, you can probably figure out where I'd go with it. But it's going to be something where we're going to look at it afterwards, and you're going to have some heroes that are going to feel kind of some are going to be are going to feel broken, and some are going to get that like that grasp of hope that they might have needed. And yes, we do have to put in the characters there of like the question. We do have to have Renee Montoya. We do have to like deal with all that. But that's a lot. That's a lot on the plate. That's what I would go with when it comes to the DC universe. So let's kind of just go into the conclusions here. Now, before we conclude and go with the finality of it, we kind of got to talk about what some of the villains are that we were going to use throughout here. I don't want to give them all away, but we are going to talk about some. I would definitely be doing Swamp Thing, so we are going to be going towards the Parliament of the Green. That is something that would definitely have to be done. We would eventually get to Lex Luthor, but for Superman, initially, I'd say we're gonna go with a smaller villain. We're gonna work towards the Eradicator. Maybe the Eradicator or Henshaw. Well, yes, because there's this thing that brings about parallax, and I don't want to do parallax in the first 5 or so years. Because we're not doing Hal Jordan, and Hal Jordan's the character that becomes parallax. So when it comes to the villains, I want to work to more towards some of the what maybe some of the lesser known villains. I'd definitely do a side story within Superman where we would talk about the Time Maker, and the time because the character Time Man, right? So it's so it is such a dark. I don't know if we could do it. For those that don't know, there was like a storyline in DC Comics where Cat Grant's child is captured and eventually, unfortunately, um, you know, doesn't make it. Um, but it'll be interesting to see that character, like to go down the road of that character being there, but not like go that far. But the fact that some people think it can go that far gives like that sense of like of dread. It will make the character seem scary. It's like when Spider-Man, remember they originally did the Lizard. It was it was a oh look, he's become this, and all of a sudden what's he do? He eats his kid. So all of a sudden the Lizard is a much darker character. But I would go for for some different villains. Are we going to bring Doomsday into it? Not yet. But I would be bringing in the Suicide Squad, and I would twist it a bit. Whereas what we've gotten right now is kind of like a more fun, kind of funny, kind of James Gunny type Suicide Squad. I would find a way to actually kind of like waylay them to bring in like a secondary Suicide Squad, kind of like they did in the first James Gunn film, right? In the James Gunn film. Remember when they had the first team and then they all got like killed off? But instead of that, what we're going to do is we're going to take this Suicide Squad, and they're not going to be the Amanda Waller Suicide Squad. No, these are going to be Deathstroke's Suicide Squad. So we are going to see Deathstroke in the DC universe, and we're going to see him go up against Batman. I know you guys want that. I know that a lot of people were excited when they saw Deathstroke come in to the that was one of the big scenes at the ending credit sequence into DCU. So we are going to go with Deathstroke. He's going to be a big villain, and he's one that because of the way his character is, he can cross over between the regular DC universe and kind of the dark universe. So we are going to have Deathstroke in there. Um, when it comes to some of the other villains, I want to put Sinestro in there, but and you know I want but I don't know if I want to put him in as a total villain because Sinestro, he does kind of cross that line. Every like he's the villain. He's like Loki, right? So he's a villain, but then he can have that part where when it comes down to it, for his own selfish reasons, he does what has to be done. He does the right thing. But we've seen a lot of that already. So I don't want to deal to the with the characters in that style. I honestly don't want to give you too much when it comes to who the villains are for the films. All I'll say is that we have a main like antagonist that's going to be bringing people forward. We're going to have a new Cheetah. We are going to have a Deathstroke. Those we know that we're going to have for sure. And he's going to bring about a Suicide Squad type of team that unfortunately that is not going to be like, oh, we're doing it for the government. We're doing it to get no. This team is going to go in to look like their mission is to help, and then they are going to do a turn, and this is where we're going to start to see the big battle begin, and it's going to open up something else in the universe that unfortunately they can't even handle, and that's where things take a big turn, and that's when we start to see the universes kind of combine. Well, it's not two universes, but you get to see like the Justice League, like the mainstream storylines, and the Justice League dark storylines kind of combine because this version, this evil version of the Suicide Squad, has messed up, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. Now, to coming to conclusion, and one thing I will say is that in certain parts of this, I do seem like kind of vague, or I'm kind of going back. I'm not exactly talking about like, okay, what villain here or what character here. That's because this is the fun part of this video. Is I want you to look at this here and say, okay, this is what I do, or these are the characters that I'd put in. I want to hear your ideas down in the comment section down below. That's the exciting part for me. Let me know what characters you would use, who you'd cast. Maybe you want a fantasy cast who Superman would be, who Batman would be. Maybe you want to say, okay, well, I love Vertigo. I'd like to see this storyline done, or I'd like to see this character come into the universe. Let me know. Maybe you don't like my ideas at all, and you're going to say, well, that sucks. Well, then if that's the case, well, this is here. It's YouTube. Everybody's got their own opinion. Do your own video. Love to see that. But be positive. Don't argue with people down in the comment section down below. Just give your thoughts. Everybody's got their own like creative thoughts when it comes to this, and I did do this in a specific way. I did deal more with the creative aspect of the universe than I did with like, okay, we're gonna deal with this aspect here. We're gonna deal with this here. I just touched on things like basically Snyderverse goes to the comic books. Finish it off there. The other things like that we're looking at, the offshoot shows, like the TV shows and stuff like that. That's their own thing, their own little pocket thing. Doesn't have to like Marvel has taken the thing where they're every TV show in some way or another kind of ties in to the MCU, and I think that's been working pretty good for them so far. But I do think that in the long run, they may have to like look outside of that and say, okay, let's have some shows that may not be within, not be pushing towards a film. And one of the things that DC can do right here, one of the strengths that they can have, is they can have TV shows and animated shows that don't deal with the baggage of that. Not everybody watches every film. Not everybody watches all the movies and the TV shows and stuff like that. And that has been something that Marvel has to deal with right now. Is that not everybody's going to watch every one of the TV shows, and there may be things that come in one of the TV shows that is an important part of the MCU. But if you haven't seen Loki, some of it may not make sense to you right away. I mean, I'm sure they'll find a way to like kind of summarize it. But let's not do that here. Let's not put DC in that place where they need to do that. Let's let DC have their Titans and their Doom Patrols and their Batman series and their Harley Quinn shows, and that can just last be on their own as kind of fun little shows that do their own thing with their own universe. And if you want to watch the DC movies, fantastic. You can come and watch the DC movies. If you just want to watch the TV shows, you can come in and watch the TV shows. But you don't put one too dependent on the other, because in the long run, what happens if two or three shows don't click with a person. What happens if you have too many films that don't click with the audience? Then you have the potential of knocking at your base, and all your blocks are falling all over the place. So we're not going to do that. We're gonna have enough difference there. We got the Vertigo films, perfect. We got like films. Anybody anytime says, well, I want my darker film. I don't want it to be a superhero film. Bam, you got your Vertigo universe. You want like, oh, I like the occult, like the Swamp Thing. I like John Constantine. I like the Phantom Stranger. Bam, Justice League Dark films, man, they're for you. I like the straightforward superhero films. I like to see the fights and the battles and like and you want to see all the other characters. Well, fantastic. Then there's the straightforward Justice League films there for you as well. And if you just want to watch some cartoons, some TV shows, all of that's taken care of. You've got that all put under one blanket. But here's the thing. Here's one of the key things that you must do, and I think anybody will tell you this right now, is no matter what vision that you have, it doesn't matter if the movie doesn't seem to take off right away, or maybe it takes two or three films to get in. You don't budge. You don't budge at all. You stick with your vision. You go with your creative vision and you stay with that. Whether it's like get somebody in there like I don't want to say like a Kevin Feige because then I'm putting it too much into the Marvel aspect of it. But I do mean like in maybe in that style, but in the sense that okay, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, um, and that's the vision that we're going with. You have to be 100% behind the person that you've put in charge, and it has to be somebody that really like somebody that knows the Justice League, who knows the DC universe, who knows the Justice League Dark universe, and knows how to kind of combine them and choose the right directors. You don't have to have a specific style, but I would say the Justice League, all the regular DC films. I'm just saying Justice League for example, right? But for all the regular DC films, mainstream, super mainstream ones, they may have more of kind of a style to them by the director that's going with. And of course, if you got a Justice League Dark, you're going to look towards more of a kind of maybe a slightly creepier, slightly more unique, more kind of a more experimental style. And then Vertigo, that's across the board. Anyway, this has been my thoughts on where I would go with the DC Universe. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Aaron. This has been the Cult of Cinema, and I guess the Cult of Cinematic Comics is what we'll call it today. And hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it. I'll see you next time.